Welcome to Unexpectedly Successful. Join us to hear the raw and genuine stories of women founders who have created their own pathways to possibilities.
Hey there, listeners. This is Griselda Martinez, your host for Unexpectedly Successful, the podcast that brings inspiration, role models, know-how to any woman aspiring entrepreneur out there for you to have the tools to get to your next step. Today, I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker, Bridgette Moody, who has a very special place in my heart because I'll tell you a little bit. Bridget and I were part of a transformational coaching certification program. And during commissioning day, which was over a year ago, Bridget and I were sitting next to each other. So it was high energy and it was so much in the works. And I am so excited to have this moment to have Bridget, what has been happening over the last year, but then also over the 10 years that she's been her own business owner. And I'm excited. So I'm going to brag about Bridget. Let me tell you, this woman is a powerhouse. She has a pen to paper conference in the Dallas area. She also has online courses. She does consulting and helps her clients go from revelation to manifestation and from vision to reality. For us aspiring entrepreneurs, business owners, I don't know, but that's music to my ears. She has had over 30 authors being able to publish the authorships. And it is so exciting that she's empowering all these people. And she has 98% of satisfaction rate over 10 years since she started this business. And as a business owner, let me tell you, that is a metric that is impressive. So with that, let me introduce Bridget. Bridget, how are you doing?
Wonderful. How are you, Griselda? I'm so glad to be here today.
I am so glad to have you here, Bridget, and just dig deeper into who you are, what your business is, and all the nitty-gritty pieces that you've experienced in this entrepreneurial journey. So the first question that I have for you, Bridget, can you please describe what is to Bridget being Bridget? Who are you?
Well, number one, I always say I'm just a country girl, very down to earth. I love people. That's my heart. That's my passion. That's my call. And so it helps me to do what I do every day with a level of, being stress-free, because I don't look at it as work. I look at it as an opportunity that I get to serve people every day and helping them get to the manifestation of the vision that they've been, I feel like they've been called to do and the thing that's been revealed to them. So that's who I am, just down to earth. I love to do the normal thing, cook. I love to crochet. People like, oh, I don't know if you have time to do all that, but I do. That's downtime stuff. So I love to do that. I'm an avid basketball fan. I'm just your normal everyday person.
All right. So you said country girl, love people. You see what you get to do as stress-free because you enable people to get to where they need to be. When you sound very clear on that statement, Bridget, can you tell us how was the process for you to know with that certainty that you are here to serve these people, get to implementation?
I've been doing this 10 years, but I've been doing administration, which is my gift. I've been doing that for 30 plus years. So I have been serving people a long time. I started in ministry when I was 21, and I started as an orator and speaking in front of audiences and groups and conferences and things of that nature when I was 22. So I've been doing this thing for a long time. So I've known for a long time that, I had this call to people. However, there was this particular gift that stood out. During the time I was still in corporate, I started building my business alongside of my corporate job at that time. But when I was able to have the opportunity to exercise my gifts with a potential client, by hearing just what they needed assistance with. And it was 4 projects at one time that they needed done. And I had less than 6 months to help them accomplish this goal. And, it was a stream of nerves that hit me, when I was having the conversation. But there was something in me that just knew I had the ability to do it. And so I took on that particular task. That's been now 10 years ago. They were my first client, and they were my client for 18 years. But I was able to successfully complete all 4 of those major events that were happening simultaneously. And so when I was able to successfully complete that project for that client, I knew I was in the vein of what it was I was supposed to be doing. And so I've always had this aspiration of seeing things get to manifestation when they're in an array. You know, they're just, you know, they're not organized. It's no systemic process. I've always had a knack for that. And so this was an opportunity to help me to solidify what my gifting was. And so it was from there that it just took off.
Wow. Okay. So you talked about gifts. You talked about you being in corporate. You talked about having this opportunity of your first clients. So tell us, and then you being in ministry since age of 21 and then 22, starting to speak before audiences. Can you give us more context to your early beginnings as a professional, Bridget?
For me, ministry has always been a part of my life. My parents were in ministry. My dad was a pastor. My mom was a first lady. So this was something that I knew. Serving people, that kind of thing was a part of the very fabric of who I am. I started singing when I was 5. And so I was director for the junior choir at 9. And so it just started from there. So I've been in front of people pretty much most of my life. So there was a level of comfortability there when it came to that. But as I began to mature and grow, and especially after I got to this level of having this platform of speaking, there were various opportunities, not just in the ministry, but those opportunities began to come from the corporate arena, having, you know, management level positions and being a project manager in the corporate arena. So these were things that really developed my craft and gave me the opportunity to explore even further some of those things that I desire to do. And as I stated, you know, once I had this opportunity with this client, it caused me to dig deeper because this was an organization. It was a ministry organization. However, it was individuals within that organization that began to come forth and ask for assistance with various things. And so that's when I had to stop and take a moment and say, okay, God, there's something else here, you know, and I need to tap into it and develop it. And so over time, that's kind of how that has, you know, that's kind of how it happened. I mean, every job that I had some level of administration, you know, that factored into it. And so I just started to hone in on that craft and that gift, and it became the niche that I began to develop and mature over time.
You talked about gifts in this part of the conversation. How did you become aware that that was a gift? I mean, it came easy to you, but how did you say, this is definitely a gift? This is something that I know it's something unique to me.
Well, you know, the way I think I ended up defining it for myself was it happened with ease. So, you know, organizing, having a knack, and, you know, sometimes when things are a struggle and you're struggling to figure out what to do, how to do, it was like the creativity came natural for me. Answers came easy to me. You know, being able to gather a plan of action. And now, you know, even now sometimes I surprise myself because things just kind of come to mind, things that I've forgotten that I knew or I read about or that I had an experience of some sort. God will just give it to me and he'll bring it back to my remembrance. And so I'm able to help my clients that way. I mean, just even past positions I've had, past jobs I've done, past organizations I've worked with, all of those things were I think just, you know, stirring up the gift in me. Not only that, it's kind of like getting that cake ready to go in the oven, all these different things God was putting into it so that, you know, I could be this finished product or semi-finished product at the end of the day. And so when I was able to, for instance, this particular initial client that I had the opportunity to serve, when I was able to gather these people, there were 400 plus volunteers that I had to work with. I had to determine, you know, how to come up with a strategy, a plan of action and execution for a 150-page commemorative souvenir book. Then there were 2 different receptions that were taking place, one with 500 plus people, one with 250 plus people. They both had different themes. And then there was an actual ceremony that had to be laid out and managed. And so when I had the ability, when I saw that God had given me the ability to be able to do these massive projects, whereas normally you would have had a person assigned to each one of those, but I had the opportunity to be able to help them to bring all 4 of those projects to fruition in less than 6 months. I knew I was in the lane I was supposed to be in. And so that's where I began to really stir the craft.
All of this while you still had your full-time job in corporate.
Yes.
How did you manage those 2 pieces of really demanding responsibilities?
It was challenging. It was very challenging because it was like having 2 full-time jobs.
Right.
But one of the things that was significant about me being able to function was having processes and establishing, a process by which I worked. So, establishing cadence for meetings. A lot of things were done before work and after work and on the weekends. So it was aggressive. When I look back now, I'm like, Lord, how in the world did I get all that done? But it was really, just organization and, developing a process by which I was going to work with people. And so that's what we did. And so there was a goal each time. There was an agenda. These are the things we need to try to accomplish. And it's always building to the next thing, not meeting to meet, but meeting to have productivity. And so those things were essential for me and very much a stickler for those kinds of things.
Wow. Sounds like 6 months that were intense, but sounds rewarding at the same time, right?
It was absolutely rewarding because here again, I took that opportunity knowing that it was going to be super challenging. It was a lot of travel involved, but at the end of the day, the other thing was that I have a real big pet peeve about, and that is establishing relationship. So my first thing was to establish a relationship with the people that I had to work with, right? And so I wasn't going to be able to have a relationship with the entire 400 volunteers, but I could have a relationship with that team of 7 or 9. And so because I established a relationship with them, it disseminated down to the teams. And so that was the deal breaker there. That's what, just blew it wide open.
Wow. Okay. So that project was the start of your business. Before that, Bridget, did you see yourself as a business owner? Did you desire to be your own boss and have your own company? Tell us about that process prior.
I have always had something that I did on the side. And so I think, somewhere I knew I would always have some type of business. I just didn't know what that business would be. I never saw it as being a consultant and coach necessarily, but I always knew there would be something that I would do. I always had something. I mean, back in the day, I used to do premier jewelry. When I was married, my ex and we had a photography business. At one point, we had a painting business. So I was always the administrative arm or piece to all of the businesses. So I kept track of things, the administration, the invoicing, dealing with the customers and all of that. So that was always my piece. So I never knew, how it was going to evolve over time, but I always knew that I wanted to do a business. And so here again, I ended up landing here after so many years of doing so many different things.
Well, so you talked about premier jewelry, photography, painting, commercial and residential. What else have you done in the entrepreneurial arena?
I still have a design business. I don't do a lot of it, but I do hand design and crochet clothing, baby clothing, blankets, things of that nature. And so for a period of time, I did that quite extensively, and it was pretty lucrative for a while.
So Bridget, just for the record and for my listeners, the one activity you mentioned before as downtime, it's also an opportunity for a business, right? And you're approved to that.
Absolutely. It's called B Designs. And so there's a website out there with products on it and everything. Not one that is my main focus right now, but yeah.
So Bridget, in your life, you've demonstrated leadership, right? And in addition to administration. But in the entrepreneurial piece, where this this inspiration came to you? Who were your role models? Who were your mentors? Who encouraged you to take that pathway? It sounds like it was just natural to you, but there had to be a point in which somebody or somehow you got into it. Can you recall that moment?
Well, I don't know if I can recall the exact moment, but the time and season was early on. And so even as a little girl in school, I had a teacher who was one of my favorite teachers, and to this day she's still living, and we're still connected. But she was there was just something about her as a role model. She wasn't just a teacher. She would spend time with myself and a couple other students. And so she got to know us on a more personal level. And so that was one role model that I had early on that I enjoyed seeing her do what she did. But now as far as leadership was concerned, I think as I began to develop in school, I think there was somewhat of a natural ability there. I remember even early on, I took a course in high school that was called DECA, Distributive Education Courses of America. And so it was all about leadership and building you for leadership. And so even as a teenager, I did sports and then I did business. These were things that I think kind of started to mold me. And for whatever reason, I just always kind of was that one I was observing, but at the same time, I didn't mind taking the lead. And so kind of always been, somewhat of a leader. But, here again, my parents were in ministry, so my dad was a leader. And then my mentor in ministry, my spiritual mentors in ministry, one of the things that I so enjoyed and loved was leadership. And that was the gift that my mentors had. And I so just, cling to that. And the more I could learn, the more I wanted to learn. And so as a result, I took on that leadership role, and especially being in ministry, there was that opportunity to be a leader, and it was a natural attachment for me.
So Bridget, that sounds incredible. Just for the record, you said that you love to establish relationships, and a proof of that is that relationship you still have with your teacher.
Yes.
From elementary school. That's incredible. Yes. And that you still have that blessing to have her as some type of a source of motivation, inspiration, information. Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing. Bridget, what about for the business component? What do you recall saying, I want to be a business owner, or how did that come about? Because we know business ownership is not natural to anyone if we don't have those connections or examples.
So what initially happened was the year prior to me really having the opportunity for this first client, I had met a speaker for which I was serving. I'm a member of the Potter's House in Dallas. And so I was serving during what we used to have was Mega Fest. And so it was this huge conference. I was serving this particular speaker, and she was amazing. And so in the process of that, we were talking during downtime and things of that nature. And so she was trying to connect with me, and I was like, well, no, this is not something that we're allowed to do. She said, I'm going to reach out to you. And so that's kind of where the inspiration happened. And so it was that year that I connected with that particular speaker. I wrote my first book. I was just coming out of divorce at that time. And so I was writing about my lessons learned and kind of figuring out what direction I was going to go in and what I wanted to do. But I knew that life was taking a turn for me, and there were some things I was going to have to do differently from a financial perspective, from, just life in general. And so, initially I thought I was going to write this book and I was going to do a series of things and, just start, again on the speaking platform and having speaking engagements and so forth and so on. But that wasn't what happened. And so in connecting with her, that's where the opportunity came, because the gift was, acknowledged. And I was like, I wasn't even thinking about a business necessarily. I was just thinking about the opportunity to share my story and be a blessing to people. But when the opportunity came, I thought to myself, I need to just, take this opportunity to see what happens, And like I said, when I was able to successfully do it, that was the moment, I think. If I would have to say there was a particular time that I got confirmed or affirmed, that would have been it. Because it let me know that I had the skills and I had the ability without a team to do what it was that I enjoyed doing. And so managing volunteers and things of that nature was something I had done for a while, for years, for free, not as a business. And I had did it and enjoyed it. Here again, building relationships, being successful with managing conferences and doing events and, putting community events and things of that nature together. It was just something I enjoyed doing. And so, I felt like if I enjoyed doing it for free, I can certainly do it and get paid to do it.
So what about in the previous opportunities where you had all these other businesses? Did you see yourself as a business owner then, Bridget, or you just thought this is a side hustle? It's not important.
It was just side hustle because here again, I was married, had 3 children, all in school. I was working. There was a whole lot going on. So this was something to, number one, give me some, away time, downtime to myself. But it gave me something to do outside of being a mother and being a wife at the time. And so I never looked at it, as being a career type choice, right? There were some people who did, but it wasn't the thing, it wasn't the thing that I saw myself doing. And so, like I said, there were so many other things that I think if I had to choose a path, I probably would have thought, I think probably being, a music artist might have been one of the things early on because that's where I started. And so while I have recorded, with some, groups and things of that nature and done a single myself, it just wasn't it wasn't the thing. I enjoyed, still do, but it just wasn't the thing that I wanted to really pursue as ongoing. And I think I landed where I needed to because this is something I feel like I can do well after retirement.
So Bridget, you've talked, thank you for all of this. And you also talked about 2 additional pieces. You wrote your first book. How old were you then?
41. I think I was about 41.
You said that you wanted to help others and you just were capturing that season. But why a book and not, I don't know, something else? Like what did the connection to writing, where did that come from?
Well, I've always been a journalist. I've always written, and that was something that I picked up probably from my mom and dad, but my mom would write everything down. I had kept journals of different things that had happened over the years and so forth and so on. Some good, some not so good. But at the end of the day, I am real big on writing things down. And it's something about that process that is very soothing for me, very cathartic. It helps me to retain information. It was one of the things I think that was probably inevitable at some point that I would write. It was intimidating the first time, but once I got it, it was like it was refreshing, right? And so it gave me the heart to want to help other people write their stories. And the simple fact that I feel like we don't write enough. Especially my culture, especially women, a lot of times, the things that we experience and go through that could really be a benefit to someone else, but especially other women, we don't write about it. We kind of go through it silently. We don't talk it through. We don't talk it out. And it was a form of, therapy for me. And it really helped me to get through a very difficult time in my life. And so I attribute that, that experience to a new mark and a new lane to really flow in. And it's been very productive. I think I'm now working on my 7th project.
Oh my, of your authorship. So
Yes.
You're working on your 7th book.
Absolutely.
How cool is that? So from all the books that you've written, which one has been the hardest to write and why?
I think the hardest one to write, even though I think people would have thought that the book about divorce would have been hard, but I was just really talking about the lessons I learned and how the next opportunity that I have to be married would be so much different for me because I married very young. I was 25 and I was married we were together 20 years, married 18. There were a lot of things that I dealt with then that I wouldn't deal with now. My criteria is different. But I think the hardest one to write was Aborted. And so in Gift Aborted, Aborted is an underlying acronym for abandonment, brokenness, rejection, offense, trust, expectations, and damaged goods. And each of those, I talk about my personal experience in those areas of feeling abandoned, being broken, that whole season of life, being offended, having trust issues, having misguided expectations. And after going through all of those things, rejection, feeling like damaged goods. And I think it was the most difficult book to write, because in that I talk about my personal experience in those areas and the various persons in my life that I experienced those things with.
Wow.
And how, over time there were things that I didn't realize that I was experiencing on those emotional levels. And how and so the book is Gift Aborted. The purpose is the gift is carried, but the purpose is never born. I talk about how it took a long time, and I felt like I miscarried a lot before my purpose was actually clear to me, because all of these things were going on at different times in my life. And so I kind of took a back seat to the different seasons and times that I was going through abandonment, that I was going through brokenness, that I was going through rejection, offense, and, trust issues and things of this nature. And that included the divorce and all of that kind of thing, that my purpose wasn't really vibrant. It wasn't clear to me. It was there, but it's like I kept miscarrying. And so, of course, the cover of that book shows a hollow wound where the woman is pregnant, but there's no baby there, right?
Oh, my.
Yeah. And so it's like, a lot of times I think we all kind of experience it at some point. We are so pregnant with possibilities and purpose and things of this nature, but the things and the gifts, but the things that we go through in life causes us to miscarry and not allow that purpose to be born. And so I think that was the most difficult one to write. And it took probably the longest because there were a lot of personal aspects of my life that was a part of that writing.
So Bridget, going back to my one of my first questions, how is it that you are so clear on your purpose right now, on who you help and what results? It was not easy. You've been in the heavy lifting, including what you just mentioned.
Yeah, one of the things that, I came to the conclusion of is that all of those things I went through, I was raised by my great-grandmother. I knew my mom, but I was raised by my great-grandmother. She started raising me at the age of 68. I was 2. She passed away when I was 15. So I had this level of wisdom and experience of life that was different from my siblings. And the average, teenager, when she passed away, she was 83. I was her caregiver even at 14 and 15 years old. I started driving when I was 14. And so my life has always been a little bit ahead of my time, I would say. Whereas there weren't a lot of things from an educational perspective that she taught me, but from a wisdom perspective, there were so many things that she laid the foundation for me. And so I had to catch up with that in my teenage mind and figure those things out. So the reason why things weren't clear early on is because I wasn't able to connect those dots. And so as life progressed, I began to connect the dots and realize some of the things that had happened and that were happening were for the purpose of what God had called and purposed me to do. I knew people were my calling, but I had to figure out what that niche was,
Wow.
It wasn't just one thing. It was all of these things that came together to make me who I am and make what I do so clear and so significant. And it was the thing that was most natural for me. And I say to people all the time, when we're talking about, their vision and their revelation and getting to manifestation, one of the things you have to be so clear about is who you are. Oftentimes, we are reluctant to deal with the very essence of the simplicity of who we are, meaning our innate ability, who we were born to be, who we are as an individual. And so many times we shy away from the things that we just do well. I've always been an very organized individual. That's always been a thing. However, growing up, I didn't know, very neat in my writing and just always very organized, very neat, very tedious in my thought process, very methodical in my thinking, always. I've always been like that. And so I had to figure out what all that was about.
what all that meant to you as an adult and then tying it as a business owner, right?
Sure, how that fit. And so it took time for me to develop that. And so, I say to people now, whenever you feel like you're at that point that you're clear about, or you have a vision that's really, really vivid, don't rush yourself. Take your time to vet it out, because the clearer you are, the more successful you can be, because it helps you to really be able to better articulate what it is that you feel you've been given to do. And it helps you to make better decisions as well.
Wow. And I want to just take a moment to honor your grandmother for giving you all that wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much.
In a very unique way that it's a lot of who you are now, right?
Oh, and absolutely.
In this, you mentioned processes before, Bridget, and now you talk about organization, and you talk about all these things that we may see about ourselves, but we don't want to pay attention, we don't acknowledge, we don't embrace. What would be a tip, a hack that you would tell our listeners to take their next step if they are feeling this uncomfort of them needing to do something different? What would you tell them to do next?
Well, here again, I would go back to documenting, writing it down, because oftentimes what's in our head is different from what's in our heart. And when we take the opportunity to write things down, it allows us to see, and it illuminates gaps, right? And so if you feel like there's a vision, there's something that you want to do that's different from what you're doing, write it out so that you can really see what it is that not only your head is saying, but what's your heart saying, right? And so once you begin to go through that process, you really begin to just kind of peel the layers back and figure out, because most of us have multiple things that we have the ability to do. Oftentimes, it may not be in the area or on the level that someone else is doing it, which is why it is of no good to any of us to compare ourselves to the next person. Because everybody has a path and a process that they go through to get to where it is that God's called and purposed them to be. And all of us have to come into this realization of what that is. Some of us know earlier than others. And even when we know early, sometimes it has to be developed and crafted. And our creativity and innovation has to come into alignment with the assignment that's on our life. And so it's nothing wrong with taking your time. If you get that revelation today, that doesn't mean that tomorrow is coming to manifestation, because vision is for an appointed time. And so you have to vet that out, and give yourself time to feel it out. And so the first thing you do may not work well, so look at what went well, what didn't, assess it, make improvements, keep it moving. And that's what I've done over the years. Where I am now is not where I started. Right. I started out as an hourly consultant, and oh God, those days, it's been a long time since that. But I just think about the challenge I had even for hourly back then, whereas now people pay me on a level, at one time that it would take me, 3 or 4 months to make that going, just charging on an hourly basis. So just the cadence of things that have occurred over the years, and the lessons I've learned, the opportunities I've had, the rooms that I've been in, all of that, it goes in a pot and it stirs together, and it creates and molds who you are and who it is that God wants you to be.
That's so beautiful. And as you're describing it, for my listeners, if you start something from scratch, most likely you will not be excellent at it. But if you don't take that step, you will never become excellent at it. That's for sure. And so whatever you have holding, just take the next step and document that vision. I love that. To align what's in our hearts and what is in our minds. Bridget, as a business owner, what is the riskiest decision you've ever made?
I think the riskiest decision I've ever made was the first one I made. Because I had the first client that I accepted, I had no clue. It was a risk beyond risk. And I'm a risk taker. But when I tell you that was a risk, because like I said, back then, did not have the tools we have today.
Yeah.
It was strictly, I I had to be certain that I was up for the challenge. I had to make that happen with traveling, low budget. It was a huge risk because here's the deal. Had I not been able to make that happen, that could have killed it for me before I got started.
And this was tied to your relationships, right?
Well, that and the start of my business, just my credibility as an individual, the whole nine, everything was on the table. Because had that not been successful, that could have been the end of the start, right?
So Bridget, how do you deal with those moments of fear and doubt in that particular situation?
Well, one of the things that I've always been, and it's just been a part of my upbringing, I've always been a person of faith. And one of the things that I've learned to do is to believe in myself. And if I felt at some point that this is going to be shaky, but I'm going to give it a go, right? I'm going to take that chance. I'm going to take that chance on me, and I'm going to take that chance on God. If I feel it strongly, now if I don't feel it strongly, I'm not going to do it. But if I feel it strongly, I'm going to take that chance on me. And then I'm going to take that chance on God. And I feel like, if I make a mistake, then I'll use that opportunity to improve upon, and I'll come back the best I can. But that's all I knew in that moment. And the fact that, I would be trusted with such a monumental task, because that's what it was in that time, in that season. It was monumental. And not to have a team, not to have a staff, not to have so many things, but God gave me the wherewithal to be able to make that happen. So I think that was the most challenging risk that I've ever taken. And I think it was by far the best one.
Wow. Even right now with all the things that you're doing, that's incredible. What a way to start. Wow. You've mentioned processes, you've mentioned faith, you mentioned journaling and other activities that you have to stay strong, to remain focused. What are practices that you have, Bridget, to help you continue to be the best person who is a business owner as you can be?
Well, a few things. So one of the things is I make sure that my spiritual life is balanced. That's a part of my everyday routine. I'm going to have meditation time. I'm going to listen to something encouraging, motivational, either from my pastor or from my mentor and coach or someone that I trust to feed me. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to always read. I'm big on leadership. I love leadership. And so I'm going to read material that fills my well for the things that I do. And so most oftentimes the clients that I have, the people that I'm coaching are leaders. And so I continue to fill my well to make sure that I have a depth of knowledge to pull from when it comes to leadership and how I can help to encourage leaders, how I can help to direct leaders, how I can help to motivate leaders and give them the information they need to work the things in the middle to get them from revelation to manifestation. And then I stay grounded in doing something that I enjoy. So, I love taking drives. I love going and trying different restaurants. And so I do the things that I love to do and I enjoy doing. And even in that, I'm looking for opportunities that I can always, my antennas are always up for my gift. And so fourthly, I attend conferences. I go to webinars. I am always a student. And so it's an ever learning process, because if you're going to continue to be relevant, you have to continue to fill your well so that you can be relevant.
Very cool thing. Spiritual life, reading, then do something you love, and then continue to learn. That's really awesome. Thank you for those tips. For those listening, you have some important takes away here to take action upon. Bridget, if you had to go back to learn something that you wish you would have learned earlier in your business ownership journey, what would that be?
If I had the opportunity to go back, I started out when I first started college, my original major was a computer programmer. And had I, because tech has changed so much,
Yes, yes.
if it was anything I was going to go back and do, I probably would have gone back and pursued completing that degree.
Wow. So you changed majors at some point of your
I
bachelor's?
did. I went into administration, business administration.
Okay. And why is it, if you have talked about administration being your gift, what do you think would have been different with the different degree?
I had this thing for knowing how things work.
Ah,
And I was fascinated at that time in season because it was new. I think the administrative part would have probably still folded into that, but it was that I've always been kind of tech savvy to some extent. But yeah, I think it was just I was just fascinated with that at that time, and I just think about had I could continue to pursue that particular degree, that wow, I could have done some things on a different level.
wow. Wow. That sounds interesting and intriguing. Bridget, as a business owner, what are you most thankful for?
I'm thankful for the fact that I get to serve people every day doing what it is that I enjoy doing.
Can you describe like a moment in which you're like, wow, this is why I do the things that I do?
Yeah, when every time a book is published and it's exactly what the client wants, they're excited about it, they can do their release, they're able to move forward and create more from that one project. When I'm able to bring alignment to any areas of ambiguity, all of those things are rewarding to me. When they sit with me and we begin to talk, or when, I'm coaching and they begin to get it, the light bulb starts to go off. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing, it would impede them doing what it is that they need to do.
Wow.
Because if a person doesn't have clarity, it's just like, the word lets us know, without a vision, the people perish. You have to have vision even for your life from day to day. What is it that you want for your life? What is it that you want to do? What do you see yourself doing? Because if you cannot see it, you can't see it.
That's right. That's right. Wow.
People having clarity and really being confident about what that is helps them to do what it is that they desire to do better. And it helps them to do it with a level of quality that they otherwise wouldn't be able to function.
Bridget, in one word, can you describe your business ownership journey, your entrepreneurial pathway to here?
Grace.
Grace. I love that. Why grace?
Because it has been, the grace of God in so many situations that I have been in certain rooms, had the opportunities to do certain things, be privileged to be a part of certain teams and networks and all of those. It's been the grace of God because, sometimes people say, oh, that's easy. I would have done that. But for me, that hadn't always been the case. And so when I first started Pen to Paper, I put out an offer for ambassadors for anyone across the country that wanted to actually host a Pen to Paper workshop. And I got, responses. The very first place I got a response from outside of my home state was Las Vegas, Nevada. I went to Las Vegas, Nevada the very first time and sold that workshop out. And I went on to different cities, Nashville and, Philadelphia and other cities across the country. And so it was the grace of God. It's just been the grace of God, And so I've just, when I'm tapped or whispered in my ear to do something, I just do it. And is it always successful? Not always. There have been times there was only one person who showed up, or maybe only 5 or 7, but the impact was always great, always significant. And so that's the thing that I'm most proud of, and that's most rewarding to me, that the impact. Because there was one time I think I had 12 people, but out of those 12, there was one person that ended up hosting a conference in California. That one was sold out. Then she hosted other events, and that led to other things happening.
Wow.
That led to products being sold. And so it has been a ripple effect of different things.
Wow. So you've been able to see that impact and the ripple effect into what that person and those institutions have been able to do after working with you. Wow. Okay. So words of wisdom for the women aspiring entrepreneurs listening to us and not sure whether or not to take their next step into this journey.
What I would share would be this. Number one, whatever vision you feel you've been given, pursue it, vet it out, and take your time and make sure that you are clear about what direction it is you're supposed to go in. Getting from vision to manifestation is not the most exciting task, but it is very rewarding and is well worth it. And there is value in your vision, and it is worth you taking the time to pursue it. And whatever you do, don't quit.
Don't quit. That's right. Wow. That's true. For our listeners who may want to find where you are, the services you provide, how can they get in touch with you, Bridget?
Absolutely. So, of course, BridgetteMoody.com. You can visit my website for an array of services and opportunities. Of course, I have products there, so there's a product suite. You can also register for the upcoming Pen to Paper conference. If you've never had a pen to paper experience, you want to make your way to Dallas, Texas. November 3rd and 4th, 2023. We'll be in Dallas, Texas at the Embassy Suites Galleria. And then I have a boot camp that I do called the Consulting Vault. So you can go to BridgetteMoody.com/vault and check that out. And then also I have Vision Management Academy. So that's a 90-day program. You can go to VMA, BridgetteMoody.com/VMA. Check that out. And then there's an array of products that are in the store. So you can pick up either one of the books that I have published over the years. And then on any of the social media platforms is Bridgette Moody. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And then I have a YouTube channel called Motivation and Conversation, Bridgette Moody Motivation and Conversation. And that's where I do Tuesday Motivation and Conversation. So I'll be there tonight live, 9 p.m. Central. And I do midweek chat on my business consulting page on Facebook. So you can find me in any of those places.
Bridget, you are a busy woman. Wow. You have a lot of moving parts, but it's so exciting that as you took this first set of projects that you described, that you still have that same level of excitement, that same level of joy for what you do and who you get to serve. So that's super cool. Bridget, anything else that you would like to share with our audience that I did not ask you?
I think we kind of covered it all, but I just want to say thank you, Griselda. I appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience, and I hope something's been said today that would encourage an entrepreneur, an author, even a mother or someone that is thinking about, that's something I would love to do, and they're apprehensive about getting started. Pursue your vision, because it's only given to you, and if you don't pursue it, it'll never happen. So I just want to encourage, your listeners to definitely take part in that. And not only that, there are products and things out there that I have, platforms that has information on, especially a YouTube channel. Go and check the YouTube channel out. I'm sure that there's one thing that is there called the You Strategy that I think, and of course that's absolutely free on the YouTube channel. And I think it would be something that would encourage your listeners as they pursue their dreams and visions.
Thank you so much, Bridget. For my listeners, the information that has been mentioned, it's in the description below. And please remember to subscribe and share with all of your friends and family. Until the next time, more to come in Unexpectedly Successful, the podcast.